Last night, all the way through today, I'm talking about Wednesday night all the way to Thursday, was probably the craziest 24 hours of sports in my lifetime. Wednesday night, when I heard the news about the postponement of the NBA season due to this coronavirus, I'll be honest with you, my first reaction was anger, frustration. This is the best part of the NBA season, the last 20-25% of it. Especially if you have a team that's fighting for the playoffs. By the way, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to click that notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I recorded a podcast Wednesday night that I intended to upload first thing Thursday morning. And I was pretty much venting my frustration, my anger out at the NBA for postponing the season due to this coronavirus. But after thinking about it, after having time to reflect on Adam Silver and the NBA's decision, I decided not to upload my original reaction. The reason I was angry is because, me personally, I feel like the hysteria about this coronavirus is created by the media. I feel like it partly has to do with politics. And the reason why I think that, when you really look into the numbers, this virus is affecting very few people in terms of the general population. But the media is hyping it up like it's the next bubonic plague. Worldwide, 129,386 people have been infected by the coronavirus. Now, this number is as of Thursday morning. Nearly 70,000 of those people have recovered. A little bit under 4,800 have died from the disease, which means far less than 1% of the global population is dying from the coronavirus. Most of the people that are passing away from it are elderly. And don't get me wrong, it's sad for the people involved, but the truth is, the elderly population is usually more affected by these types of things. If I get pneumonia at 35 years old, the odds of me dying are pretty slim. Now, if I'm 80 years old and I get pneumonia, I'm in deep shit. Here at home in the United States, there have been a little under 1,400 cases as of Thursday morning, 38 deaths. Once again, far less than 1% of the general population. So personally, I feel like the hysteria and the paranoia surrounding the coronavirus is 100% a media creation. Now, with that being said, I understand the NBA's decision to temporarily postpone the season until they can figure out exactly what the fuck is going on. It doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand it. It's easy for me to second guess the decision, which is what my initial reaction was Wednesday night. But Adam Silver has the responsibility of millions of people attending these games and this virus spreading. He has the responsibility of the players, the officials, people working in the arenas. This was a bold decision. Could cost the league hundreds of millions of dollars. So I commend him for looking out for people and their health over money. If you weren't watching the NBA Wednesday night, this all went down in the matter of a couple of hours. I was watching the Denver-Dallas game on ESPN, and the news was released that the game between Utah and OKC was canceled. Oddly enough, Rudy Gobert with the Jazz, who was mocking the virus during a press conference on Monday, was the one diagnosed with the coronavirus. He's the one that started this whole shitstorm. The question everyone is asking now, how long will the NBA season be suspended? The answer is no one knows. One thing I don't want to happen is for them to decide to truncate the regular season and head straight into the playoffs once this virus passes through. That would be extremely unfair to teams like the Pelicans and the Kings, who are fighting for their playoff lives with 18 or so games to go. But it's highly likely at this point that the NBA regular season is over. Now, I'm trying to look at this positively. Maybe the season will be suspended for a couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then play will resume. Then the playoffs will extend possibly into the beginning of July, even maybe August. And we can transition from the NBA Finals right into the beginning of the NFL season. Then we would eliminate that 2-month lull where we have no sports on TV. Because let's be honest, none of us are really watching baseball. The television ratings prove that. Or what the NBA could do, they could use this time to experiment. I've always said that there are too many teams that make the playoffs. Maybe they could cut the playoff field to 8 or 12 teams. See how it works out. And they could use that going forward if it does work. The NBA has far more leeway in this situation than the NCAA. The NBA has the option to play it safe, push the playoffs back, still go through with the draft in June, even with the playoffs going on. But the NCAA doesn't have that type of leeway. Universities are closing down all over the country. The NCAA canceled March Madness a couple of hours ago, along with every other collegiate event that's going on in the spring and summer. So there will be no March Madness in 2020, which sucks because it's one of the best sporting events of the year. I don't talk politics on this podcast. I don't like politics. There's never been a politician that's ever done a damn thing for me. But I was thinking earlier about how quickly things have changed in this country with this coronavirus. President Trump instituted travel bans, I believe, for 30 days for people coming from Europe to the United States. Sporting events nationwide are being canceled. Threats of a nationwide quarantine are being rumored. Many of our freedoms are being temporarily taken away within a span of about 24 to 48 hours. And it got me to thinking about how dictators take over a country. Take Hitler, for example. He manufactured a crisis. The Jews are coming to take over Germany. Got elected as the German chancellor and never relinquished the office. Tried to take over the world. One man was responsible for instigating a worldwide war. Think about how simple it would be for the same thing to happen in America. And make no mistake about it. It could happen. It's possible. You get someone into office as president, they manufacture a crisis, take away our freedoms one by one until they're all gone. And once your freedom is taken, you never get it back. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening with this coronavirus. I don't think that's the case at all. But this whole thing really opened my eyes to the fact that one tiny virus has the potential to change the landscape of America. And it could happen as quickly as 1 to 2 days. But at the end of the day, we in America will be fine. We always come out of crisis like this stronger than we were before. Personally, I think this could be the end of President Donald Trump. All he had going for him was the economy. And we are going into a deep recession. It's time. I mean, we've had a strong economy for 10, 11 years. Obama doesn't get enough credit for what he did with the economy, getting us out of the mess that George Bush created. But it's the truth. Trump came in and he made it better. He did. Everyone needs to quit with the panic. America is going to be fine. All right, enough with all the political talk. Another thing I'm pretty much tired of talking about is Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. I tried avoiding this week because it seems like I've talked about Dak and his contract situation on every podcast for the past 6 or so weeks, but it's just unavoidable. The deadline for teams to apply the franchise tag to players has been extended to next Monday. It was originally set to expire on March 12th, yesterday. So it buys Dak and the Cowboys a few more days through the weekend to squabble over his contract extension. Jerry Jones has offered his, quote, franchise quarterback, and I use that term franchise loosely, because Dak Prescott is not what I would call a franchise quarterback. But Jerry Jones has offered him a long-term extension that would average about $33 million a season with $105 million guaranteed. The contract reportedly would be the biggest contract in NFL history. But apparently, this offer is no bueno for Dak Prescott. He and the team are going back and forth on the length of the deal. The Cowboys want him locked in long term. Dak is wanting more of a short-term deal. And I can understand why. There's a new collective bargaining agreement on the horizon. The NFL is negotiating new television deals. You've got guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson that are coming up for contract extension soon that could set the market. So Dak taking a short-term deal means he's basically betting on himself, and he would get even more money in a couple of years when the deal expires if he plays well. That being said, Dak would have to be a fucking idiot not to sign this deal. For one, if he doesn't sign the contract, the Cowboys are just going to franchise tag him. Now, what would he make on the franchise tag? $33 million, the same fucking amount he'd make if he just signed the damn contract. Second, Dak has all the leverage right now. He holds all the cards. But that's not going to be the case for long. The franchise tag is an extremely risky deal for a player. It's a one-season deal. And a lot can happen in one NFL season. You could have a season-ending injury in week 1. Your value plummets. Or you could get hit with a minor injury that causes you to miss several weeks, and your no-name backup quarterback could step in and take your job. Just ask Drew Bledsoe, who was injured in week 2 back in 2001, and this guy you might have heard of him named Tom Brady stepped in and never gave him the job back. One of the reasons that Dak has the leverage right now is because the Cowboys are in a hurry to get this deal done. They've got several key guys hitting free agency that they want to sign. And they can't move forward with any of those until the Dak situation is resolved. One of those guys is Amari Cooper, who Dak desperately needs back in Dallas in 2020. But the main reason Dak Prescott needs to sign this contract is because it's paying him more money than he's worth. I think this could be the one and only time in his career that he's offered this kind of money. This is top 5 quarterback money. And Dak Prescott's not a top 5 quarterback. Hell, he's a top 10 quarterback. Dak Prescott's not even a top 5 quarterback if you grouped him with the guys drafted with him from 2016 to today. I'm going to give you my ranking of quarterbacks drafted since 2016 and tell you where I rank Dak in this group. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. 3, Carson Wentz. 4, Deshaun Watson. 5, Jared Goff. 6, Josh Allen. 7, Sam Darnold. 8, Kyler Murray. 9, Dak Prescott. Number 10, Daniel Jones. And no, I didn't forget about Baker Mayfield on that list. I think all of those guys I listed are better than Baker Mayfield. Dak Prescott barely makes the top 10 of quarterbacks drafted in the past 4 years. And he's turning down top 5 quarterback money? It just doesn't make sense to me. Think about this for a second. Dak Prescott had a relatively healthy Cowboys team around him in week 16, heading into Philadelphia. And he got beat by Carson Wentz and an Eagles team filled with practice squad players. That's the difference between a franchise quarterback, Carson Wentz, and a mediocre quarterback, Dak Prescott. For years, Tom Brady played with receivers that most of the time we had never heard of. And he led them to the playoffs every year. Drew Brees overcame bad defenses damn near his entire tenure in New Orleans besides the 2009 Super Bowl run and the last 3 years. Russell Wilson was the entire Seahawks offense this past year and led them to the divisional round of the playoffs. These guys are franchise quarterbacks. And Dak Prescott couldn't lead a healthy Cowboys team past the Eagles practice squad to win the NFC East, the worst division in the NFL. The Cowboys had no business going 8-8 last season in that division and not making the playoffs. The longer this drags on, the worse it becomes for Dak Prescott. He is one Tom Brady phone call away from this offer being rescinded. Because if Tom Brady decides that he wants to play in Dallas, Jerry Jones will be getting Dak the first available ticket on American Airlines, and it'll be coach, not first class. And believe me, if Jerry Jones wasn't feeling his own mortality, he wouldn't be making this big of an offer to an 8-8 quarterback. Guys don't go 8-8 in the NFL and get offered the highest paid contract in league history. This seems like a desperation move on the part of Jerry Jones. He knows that Dak Prescott's not worth this kind of money, but if he doesn't get Tom Brady, Jerry knows that Dak is his only option. Dak is a guy that can get you into the playoffs if he's got the right weapons around him. And Jerry desperately wants to win another Super Bowl before he ascends into heaven. I think in the back of his mind, he knows that Dak Prescott is not the guy that can get that done. But in the present moment, he's his only option. All right, we're a little under a week away from the official beginning of free agency in the NFL. Free agency begins on March 18th. The NFL and the NBA are the two most popular sports leagues in America, but they couldn't be any more different when it comes to building a championship team. In the NBA, a franchise can go from 25 wins to 60 wins in the matter of one free agency period. Take the Cleveland Cavaliers, for example. In Kyrie Irving's first 3 seasons in Cleveland, the Cavs won 21, 24, and 33 games. Summer of 2014, LeBron James comes home. They go out, they get Kevin Love. They're an automatic title contender. The Houston Rockets, before James Harden, hadn't made the playoffs in 3 years. Since 2012, when they went out and got James Harden, they haven't missed the playoffs. 1 or 2 players added in free agency can have a huge impact in the NBA. That's not the case in the NFL. Every year around this time, fans of shitty NFL teams begin to get excited. If we just had this one receiver, we would be a playoff team. If we just had this one running back, this one corner, we would be a playoff team. History tells us that NFL free agents oftentimes don't have that big of an impact. Look no further than the Cleveland Browns. Last summer, all we heard about for months leading up to the NFL season was how great the Browns were going to be. They got Odell Beckham. This team is legit. Pundits everywhere were claiming that the Cleveland Browns were going to be the favorite to win the AFC North. Some even had them going to the fucking Super Bowl. We all know what happened. The 2019 season in Cleveland was a fucking disaster. Odell Beckham didn't fit the offense, didn't work well with Baker Mayfield. Mayfield and the Browns actually regressed from 2018. Do you remember the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles, the dream team free agent class they had? Went out, got Vince Young, who was coming off a disastrous ending in Tennessee. They were bragging about their revamped defense built through free agency. Went out and signed Nnamdi Asomugha, who was coming off 3 straight Pro Bowls. They also added Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Jason Babin to the defense. The Eagles are going to have the best defense in the NFL until they didn't. Vince Young was a disaster. Started in just 3 games, had 9 interceptions. The Eagles finished that year 8-8 out of the playoffs. How about the Houston Texans? Back in 2016, they thought that Brock Osweiler was their quarterback of the future. Now, at the time, no one could quite figure out why the fuck they thought that, and of course it didn't work out. He lasted 1 season in Houston before they dumped his ass, and now he's either selling insurance or cleaning cow shit in the middle of Idaho. Trying to build a championship caliber team in the NFL through free agency is not the answer. It's not the way to get it done. Now, that's not to say all free agent signings are bad. Adding key free agents that fit your team, fit your locker room, adding key free agents to a team that's already in title contention or flirting with contention can work. Obviously, the New Orleans Saints proved this point. They added Drew Brees back in 2006, picked up Demario Davis in 2018, who was paid huge dividends on the defensive side. Denver Broncos went out and got Peyton Manning, won a Super Bowl. Oakland Raiders back in 2001 went out and got Jerry Rice. They went to a Super Bowl, ended up losing. So free agent signings can work. I'm not saying that they don't. But too many teams in the NFL try to go the NBA route and attempt to build a championship team in one off season. And it just doesn't work that way. The majority of championship NFL teams are built through the draft. Just look at the last few Super Bowls. Kansas City, built through the draft. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, all drafted by the Chiefs. The Niners, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, drafted. The Rams the year before. Most of their key players were drafted by the Rams. Now, did these teams add key pieces through free agency? Of course. But were they built through free agency? Absolutely not. NFL free agents can be the added piece or two that propels a bubbling team into championship contention. But I can't think of one time in all my years watching the NFL that a championship team was built through free agency. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. And don't try to use my Raiders or my Broncos examples against me. Both of those teams were in the playoffs before they added Jerry Rice and Peyton Manning. Speaking of free agency, Jimmy Graham, tight end for the Packers, is waving goodbye to Green Bay. The Packers have released him. He's going to hit free agency. So, of course, some Saints fans are looking through rose-colored glasses, and they are saying that the Saints should go out and sign Jimmy Graham. I couldn't disagree more. Jimmy Graham was a one-trick pony. There's a lot that goes into being an NFL tight end. You got to be a run blocker. You have to block for the quarterback, then break free to be a check down option. You had to be a route runner. You had to be a receiver. Jimmy Graham was only one of those things. He was an excellent receiving tight end when he was in New Orleans. He absolutely sucked at everything else. Graham was a product of the excellence of Drew Brees. Guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees loved their tight ends, especially in the red zone. But after Jimmy Graham left New Orleans, did you notice that you hardly heard about him anymore? His production was never the same. His last 4 years in New Orleans, he averaged about 89 catches a season. He was targeted over 130 times every year of those 4 except 2014. He had 46 touchdowns over those 4 seasons. Since he left Drew Brees, he's had 23 touchdowns in 5 years. Almost 1,700 fewer receiving yards. The Saints back then wanted to keep Jimmy Graham. They just didn't want to pay him what he thought he was worth, so he chased the money in free agency. He thought he was better than he actually was because Sean Payton hid a lot of his weaknesses. He was never the same player once he left New Orleans. He was never that special to begin with. Drew Brees made Jimmy Graham. He made him a lot of money. Not to mention the fact that the Saints already have an aging tight end under contract. And Jared Cook is much better at this point of his career than Jimmy Graham. Because Cook can run block. Cook is still producing. He had 9 touchdowns last season. Jimmy Graham has had 9 touchdowns in a year once since 2015. He had career lows across the board last year in Green Bay. So get it out of your mind, Saints fans, because there's absolutely no way in hell that Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton are even thinking about bringing Jimmy Graham back to New Orleans. All right, that's all for today. I was going to talk about the Lakers and their inability to perform in clutch situations, but that story is kind of a moot point right now, considering that we don't know when the NBA is going to be back. I will be back this weekend. We'll see what happens with this whole coronavirus thing. I hope that the NBA will announce that they're only suspending the regular season 2, 3, 4 weeks, like I said earlier, and we can get back to business. It's going to feel like July and March with no sports to watch on TV this weekend. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Click that notification bell to receive all updates from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think of the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I will see you guys later on this weekend.